Hey Internet, it's RJ. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the show today. Today's episode, we are focusing on the wonderful world of credit card travel benefits and protections. So if that sounds interesting to you, and you especially want to make sure you don't end up somewhere left high and dry by your airline, then go ahead, press the subscribe button. Let's get to work. Now, first things first, again, might not be the most interesting video you ever watch, but if you're going to be traveling anytime in the next, few months, then this could be the most important video you watch. So that's not a heck of a hook to sell you. I don't know what is. So first of all, the format of this video, now understand there's a lot of different credit cards out there, so I'm not going to focus on any one specific one, although we'll reference a few for example. This is going to be more so like here's a high level, here's some things that you should look for and be aware of for your particular card. But of course, I'll give you some recommendations on cards at the back end of this. So first things first, when we talk about travel cards, we're talking about things like the Sapphire Preferred, Sapphire Reserve, Amex Platinum, co-branded cards like the Hilton, the United, the Delta cards, you name it. These benefits are not going to be found to this extent on your no annual fee cards or your cashback cards. So that's first and foremost. What we mean by this is when it comes to travel insurance, back in the day, you used to maybe go through a travel agency or something, and you could also buy trip insurance. Now you can still do this, but less and less people do it because there's a lot of benefits provided by your credit card, but we always don't know what exactly we're covered for, what exactly that means. That's what we're going to get into today. So, quick story time. If you want to skip ahead, feel free to chapter stool down below. But this has happened, as of late, especially over the holidays. We've seen thousands of flights getting canceled by the day, folks getting stranded with no real way to get home, especially if you're flying long distances and, you're going to still have to stay somewhere, rebook, what have you. That's all going to come out of your pocket, but you can get reimbursed for some of that. This also happened to my brother very recently. He was coming from DTW to LAX. He was actually on the plane. They couldn't find another flight attendant to make a full crew. So by the time they finally found one, the pilots were over the amount of hours they were allowed to be on the job. And then as a result, everyone had to get off the plane. And what's worse, he's a person who checks a bag, and the airline decided they were going to keep their stuff. They weren't going to, give it back to people. So that's even worse. So these examples happen all the time, and I'm sure you guys have some great examples in the comments. So that's why this is important. So first of all, we talked about credit cards offer some level of travel insurances, and we're going to get into them in a minute. But first things first, what are some things you should consider and be aware of when we're talking about this? Now, if you're used to dealing with auto insurance or homeowners insurance or something like that, then this won't be a foreign concept to you. But the biggest question I always get is, do I need to use that specific card to pay for the purchase that I'm making to get the insurance? And the answer to that is probably yes. Again, every card has its own different way of looking at it, but I know, for example, if you're talking about, let's say, the Chase Sapphire Reserve, it has some really good travel protections. If you're going to, you need to at least make part of the purchase on that card. And if you're going through the Ultimate Rewards portal, then in using Ultimate Rewards, then that will also trigger the insurances as well. Even if you don't use the card, but you own the card, that will work. But generally speaking, most of these cards, you're either going to have to make the full purchase, like the full airline tickets, the full hotel booking, or at least a portion of it. So, for airlines, there's a lot of time there's like the taxes fee that you can't pay with points. Sometimes paying that will work. Now, other things you want to keep in mind here that are going to be pretty important. Who is covered? Now, some cards define this differently. Some say just immediate family members, and they have defined who is an immediate family member. Others are more generous. How much coverage do you get? Like your typical homeowner's policy, auto policy, there's like coverage amounts by travel benefit. What exactly is covered, the items or expenses? The documentation that's going to be required. Now, normally this is going to be, things like your original booking, your rebooking, any receipts you paid, any flight notification changes or delays or cancellations from the airline, something like that. Same with hotels. How long do you have to file a claim? And then what is the actual process for filing a claim? Now, again, a lot of this stuff is, brought to you by the card issuer, but most of the time they have outsourced this to a vendor from their side. It's kind of like a benefits administrator. So you can see these benefits on your card issuer page, but then most likely you're going to be dealing with a third party. So again, these are some of the questions you want to ask. And again, if you don't want to read through terms and conditions, you can actually call in ahead of time and talk to folks there and say, hey, this is what's happening. Would this likely be covered? What is the requirement of me? And you can do that. But again, when this happens, most of the time you aren't thinking about it right then and there. You're really just trying to scramble to get your accommodations set up so you're not stuck in the airport. So that's the high-level intro of it, long intro, I guess. Now, let's talk about the actual insurance benefits themselves. So there's some highlights, but we're going to go through all the major ones here and explain what they are, what it means, and what's covered, of course, generally speaking. So let's start off now. So again, a lot of this information is coming from the Value Penguin article linked down below. The first one we have is travel accident insurance. So this is going to cover individuals in the event of death or dismemberment during common carrier travel that is a vehicle that is licensed to transport any public passenger. So this is basically you're on the aircraft and something happens to you. So typically coverage here is extended to the cardholder and their immediate family. Now, amount of coverage is going to vary, again, between like $100,000 to $500,000. Again, when they're talking dismemberment, you hope you never have to use this one. And so there are some exclusions, right? So this is really kind of excluding physical illness, disease, pregnancy, childbirth, miscarriage, bacterial, viral infections. You kind of get the deal. It's really just limited to, things that happen because of a malfunction, if you will, with the vehicle you're traveling in. Now, next up, we have a much more common one, which is baggage loss or delay insurance. So this is coverage for the loss or damage sustained to carry-on or checked baggage. So the coverage amount, this one varies wildly. So it can be typically, limited to a few $100s or up to, a few $1,000s per person per trip. I've also seen this one say, hey, there's a difference between your baggage delayed versus it is lost. So that can vary as well, too. Now, next up, we have trip cancellation or interruption insurance. So this one's another fairly common one. So coverage for damages resulting from canceled or interrupted travel plans. So this coverage includes flight insurance, and they're giving an example here. If your flight is canceled by the carrier as a result of inclement weather, you may be eligible to receive money back through your credit and travel insurance policy. Now, this coverage will commonly only pay for the cost of the flight you miss. So even if you have like a connecting flight and you made one of them but not the other, it will probably only cover the part that you missed. So anything else may not be covered. Now, emergency evacuation and transportation insurance, hopefully much less common, but this is going to coverage includes transportation, medical services, and medical supplies. And then another one I'm adding here is a pretty popular one, which is primary CDW, collision damage and waiver insurance. So this is basically saying the primary coverage for damage caused by theft or collision specific to a car you're renting. So the amount coverage varies. This can be as high as the cash value of the rented car, and the duration of the rental can matter as well. So overall, a few more things now that we understand the insurances. The overall process. Again, I said at the beginning, if you're used to dealing with homeowners or auto insurance, then you're going to be familiar with the process. They're more than likely they're going to have a site that you can go to get a claim started. There'll be a form you can fill out, then where you can supply all your documentation. Again, you're going to want receipts, you're going to want documentation from the airline or the hotel, whatever it is. Then you're going to be able to submit that to them. They'll review it, and they'll make a decision. Now, what's also likely to happen is they may ask you for more things. Like if there's any legwork that needs to be done, I would expect that you're going to have to do it. So, for example, if your baggage is gone, right, it is lost for X amount of time, I would imagine you're going to have to get a statement on airline letterhead for them officially declaring that they're saying they've lost your luggage. The same with canceled flights that have connecting flights. If you're hitting 2 or 3 different airports to get to your final, they're not going to. If you made 2 of those connectings and missed the other 2, that they're going to probably do is make you go to the airline and say, okay, what was the price of those connecting flights, and only pay you out for the ones that you missed, not the entire thing. I think that would be all on the card holder to go run down. Should be part of the process, but again, it probably shouldn't be that bad. I think insurance gets a bad rap, but as long as you're keeping track of your documentation, you know what you're getting into going into it, then I think it should be fine. Now, really quick here, let's talk about some alternatives. Now, in the beginning, we touched on if you don't have one of these cards, you don't travel enough to do it, then yes, you can still purchase travel insurance if you want to. For everyone watching this, I'm going to assume they don't want to go that route. Again, I do think, if you travel 2-3 times a year, I think the credit card's fine. Again, you're going to be earning a lot of points. There are other travel benefits as well as these insurance we just don't talk about. Now, there's one other thing here that, especially with airlines specifically, when things get canceled, you do have rights with the airline. So let's talk about that really quickly and how these two play off of each other. So if your flight does get canceled, or delayed, I think they define it as a significant delay. I don't know what officially a significant delay is. I think it's any more than like 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours. But if that happens, you choose to get a cancellation, like cancel that flight, not go on it, then you're owed, like by federal guidelines, a full cash refund. Now, you can't get the full refund and then still go on your flight. So if it's canceled and they rebook you and you choose to go on that rebooking, like, well, you're still using the service, so you have to pay. That's kind of what happened to me when mine got canceled. I still need to get home, so I just rebook me. Now a lot of times they'll throw you in first class or something, or they'll give you the seat, the seat in the back that doesn't have a seat in front of it, so you've got the extra legroom. They'll try to be nice to you. You can also ask for other things. There's like an official guidelines that each airline has. I think Delta, if you get canceled in between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., they'll actually put you up in one of their like contracted hotels that they have. It's going to vary from airline to airline for sure, much like these credit card perks do. But be aware of those. There are also things outside of the credit card perks and that don't require insurance that the airlines will do for you. A lot of times, though, you do have to ask very directly and be prepared to have to quote something from their site that's probably buried farther down and who knows where. Now, that is important because technically, if, let's say, the airline puts you up in a hotel for the night and you're also trying to, get reimbursed for the hotel as part of one of your delay or coverage insurances, technically you're not supposed to do that. That's double dipping, and I think, a lot of the terms and conditions even say we'll reimburse for non-covered expenses. So if the airline's paying for it, technically you shouldn't submit for that as well, because I know someone's going to ask. I'm not saying don't try, but you're not technically supposed to. So with all that being said, what are some recommendations for cards if you're interested? Well, we covered a few of them. Sapphire Reserve and Sapphire Preferred are going to be huge, especially given the annual fees and what you get. Sapphire Preferred may be the best one, $95 for all those travel insurances. Amex Platinum is going to be another common one that a lot of people already have, so I'm going to include it in there. U.S. Bank Altitude Reserve is not bad for a travel card either. You do have to have a U.S. Bank relationship to get it. It's not bad, especially with the credits. It comes out pretty well. And then the Capital One Venture X, which is a newer card, but it does have a lot of decent things like primary CDW. So those would be the ones to go to. But again, if you want something super simple, Sapphire Preferred for a low cost, you could have that one. And again, a lot of the co-branded cards also have this stuff as well. So if you're trying to figure out, do I have to use my Sapphire Preferred for everything? Well, probably not. It just depends on what cards you have. Again, that Value Penguin article, they have a cool breakout of all of this down below for the major cards. But overall, I think this is pretty important. It's definitely one of the undervalued benefits of travel cards, to say the least. But anyways, guys, if you like this one, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, posting content just like this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Of course, right back here every Sunday with all the news you can use in the week that was in credit and finance. My question for you guys is, let me know down below what your favorite travel insurance perk is, card is, or just how it's helped you out and saved you in the past. Love to get your thoughts on that. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.